and welcome to Noble Character Crafts. My name is Amy and I'm coming to you today from Eastern Nebraska. This is Friday, February 24th, 2023. A huge welcome to any new or returning viewers. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you really enjoy this episode. This is a channel all about my crafty life, and today I have knitting and crocheting to share with you all. You can find me online on Instagram at Noble Character Crafts, and you can get in contact with me through my email at noblecharactercrafts@yahoo.com. I will have links to the places that you can find me in the description box below, as well as the show notes for this episode. I'm hosting a year-long make-along on Instagram called the Make 9 2023 Mal for you to join in the Make 9 Challenge, and I will have details of that make-along in the description box below if you're not familiar with it, so you can sure check that out if you haven't heard about it already. I am wearing a hand-knit garment today. This is the Gigi cardigan by Devin, Ventre of Knitty McPurly. I did make some modifications to this cardigan. I can't quite remember all of the details to it that I made to it or all of the changes that I made to it because I knit this several years ago. I know that I knit it out of Knit Picks Wool of the Andes worsted weight, which is 100% non-superwash high Peruvian Highland wool, but I don't remember any of the other details about it. I know that I cropped it quite a bit. You can see the ribbing there, but otherwise I can't remember. But I will link to the episode where I talked about this as a finished garment. If you want to find out more about it, it will probably be at the very beginning of that episode where I mention more details about this item if you're curious about that. I do have some finished objects to share with you all today. The first is this beautiful pair of socks. I'm so happy with how these turned out. I just think they're so bright and cheerful. This pattern is called Wild Heart, and it is by Crazy Sock Lady Designs. And I knit this to join in the Vintage Valentine Mal that Kay of Crazy Sock Lady and Moon Glow Yarn were co-hosting for the month of February. They were hosting a make-along for you to join in using one of Kay's patterns or using Moon Glow yarn. I used Knit Picks Felici yarn in the Sonora Sunset colorway, which is fingering weight 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. It has been in my stash for a while. I have no idea when I bought this yarn, but I am trying to knit through my collection of Knit Picks Felici yarn, or the majority of what I have of Knit Picks Felici yarns anyway, this year. And I've kind of scheduled it out for every month. I'm planning on knitting a new pair of, a new set of Knit Picks Felici yarn each month. And so this was the color that I had picked for February because I just loved the pinks and reds throughout this colorway. And since Kay was co-hosting that make-along, I thought it would be fun to join in that and knit another one of her sock patterns. I actually had knit my January Knit Picks Felici socks using one of her patterns, and so I thought it would be fun to again use one of her patterns this month. And this pattern is just so beautiful with these fun cables running along it, and I think it looks great in the self-striping yarn. I knit these on US 0.2 millimeter needles. The cuff, I did a little bit shy of 20 rounds. I think it was 17 rounds. I just wanted to end the cuff when the stripes changed color. It's, as you can see, it's a twisted rib. And then I think I did one more repeat of the cable, the pattern repeat for the leg to make it a little bit longer, which is just my preference. And then I followed the pattern otherwise, except that I added in my slip stitch detail that I always add onto my own socks on the ball of my foot. I do a similar pattern to what you would do in a slip stitch heel flap. So when I get to the ball of the foot of my socks, I add in a slip stitch detail just to give it some extra reinforcement in that area of the sock, because that is where I wear a hole in my socks most quickly. So I just, when I get basically the last 30 rounds of my sock before I get to the toe decreases, I do on the bottom of the sock, I do slip one, knit one across for one round, And then the next round I just knit across, and I repeat those 2 rounds for 30 rounds total to add in this slip stitch detail. Otherwise, I followed the pattern, and I really enjoyed working up this pattern. So pretty. I can kind of turn it here maybe on the sock blocker so you can see it better since it runs down the front of the sock. Here you can kind of see the full detail of the pattern. You know, you never know when you do a patterned sock with self-striping yarn. I always wonder if it's going to turn out well, but I really like how this looks with the self-striping. I think it's cool. And then the back is just plain stockinette, as you can see. So that's fun too, to have a little bit of a rest with the pattern, and then also just to get to see those colors stripe up in plain stockinette is kind of fun too. I did do some color management, as I mentioned last time. So last time I recorded, I was just before, I maybe was in the, like up in this blue section. So I was still on the leg of the sock, and I just kept knitting straight until I got to the heel turn, and then I cut my yarn and wound it until I got back to the red stripe so that I could continue the stripe sequencing for the leg. And that worked out really well. I had an extra skein of this Knit Picks Felici colorway. I'm not sure why, but instead of only having 2 skeins, I had 3 skeins of the Sonora Sunset. And I did actually have to break into that 3rd skein because I was doing so much color management because I wanted to keep the stripes in sequence. So I did have to break into that other skein, but that was perfectly fine. I was glad to actually use it up a little bit more. So anyway, I'm just so happy with how these turned out. I think they're so fun and cheerful. And I'm very happy with them, and happy that I'm so far keeping up with my goal of knitting through this yarn this year. The next pair of socks that I was able to finish are a gift that are going to a family friend named Eva. These are just a plain ribbed sock. I did not follow a pattern. I cast on, oh, I forgot to mention that for these socks, I knit the medium size, which has a stitch count of 64 stitches. For these, I cast on 60 stitches, again using US 0.2 millimeter needles. I did a 1x1 cuff for 20 rounds. And then for the leg of the sock, I did a 4x1 knit 4 purl 1 pattern for the ribbing. Again, I did a slip stitch heel flap, and then just did plain stockinette on the bottom of the foot, but kept the ribbing up here on the top. This beautiful yarn that I used is from a Homespun house. It was a colorway that she dyed several years ago as a special one-of-a-kind birthday celebration, I believe it was. And it's called Unicorn Magic. This is also a 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon blend yarn. And I just think it knit up so beautifully. I love the colors and how they worked up. Otherwise, for plain socks, I actually follow the same pattern that is in the Crazy Sock Lady Designs sock patterns. That's just basically how I prefer to knit all of my socks. So I always follow Kay's instructions for my heels and toes, because those just work really well, and I have those patterns memorized now, so I always kind of plug those heel and toe patterns into any of the plain socks that I make. So these are going to be gifted to Eva. Her shoe size is just one size smaller than mine, so I wear a 9.5 and Eva wears a size 9. So I just knit them a few rounds shorter than I would for my own socks, but they still fit on these sock blockers that fit my socks as well. So anyway, since they're ribbed as well, I think I'm hoping that they will be a great fit. But you know, they can kind of, when you take them off the blockers, they really scrunch up, so they look pretty small, but they have so much stretch that I hope that they will be a great fitting sock for Eva. So those will be going off to her whenever we get to see them next. And I also knit another pair of socks that I didn't even show off last time. These are a pair of socks that are going to Eva's sister, her little sister named Abby. She is 12, and she had picked out this yarn. Eva had also picked out that yarn, and actually they had picked it out back in October, and it's kind of ridiculous that it's taken me so long to finally get these socks knit up for them. But anyway, this is some yarn that Abby had picked out, and she even had picked out the contrasting yarn that she wanted for the heels and toes, and I think they turned out super cute as well. So Abby's feet are a bit smaller. I just measured them when she was here back in October. Hopefully they haven't grown too much. But again, these socks are ribbed, and so I think they're going to be really able to stretch to fit her feet nicely, I hope. This yarn is from Hobbii.com, and it is called Hobbii Sock Yarn Mars in the pink colorway. It's also a 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon blend. I cast on 56 stitches for these, again using US 0.2 millimeter needles. And I can put this on my sock blocker as well. I don't want to stretch it out too much, but like I said, they do just have a lot of stretch to them. So I quickly tried them on these sock blockers to take a picture of them, and they were able to go on easily. So you can kind of see how they stretch really nicely. But again, I don't want to stretch them out too much because Abby's feet are so much smaller. So anyway, they kind of scrunch right back up again. I just did a 2x2 rib for the entirety of these socks. I just thought that that would give her, again, the best rib. You know, I wanted as much ribbing as I could just to make sure that they fit her leg as best as possible. So I had thought about changing the rib pattern from the, from the cuff to the main part of the leg, but I just decided to continue the 2x2 ribbing for the entirety of the sock. So for the leg, I think I did I write it down? Yeah, I did 78 rounds for the leg. And then the contrast color I used is from Knit Picks Stroll Tonal in the Pearlescent colorway, which again is a 75-25 sock yarn. I did plain stockinette on the bottom of the foot, and I knit the foot for 69 rounds before I did the toe decreases. So I'm really hopeful that they will fit her feet, and I hope that you love them, Abby. I'm excited that I was able to finally get these done. I'm sorry it's taken me so long to get these socks done that you guys had requested quite a while ago. But I'm happy that I finally got them finished for you all. All right, a couple of other finished objects that I was able to work on since I saw you last. I wasn't able to show this one off on the last episode either. It was a super quick project. I wanted to make myself a Musselburgh hat. This is a pattern by Ysolda Teague, and this is the third time that I've knit this pattern. But this time I wanted to try it using some worsted weight yarn, which actually the pattern doesn't call for you to go up to worsted weight. It only goes up to DK weight. But I looked on some other project pages and saw that other people had used worsted weight yarn for this pattern, and that it had worked out. So I used US 6 4mm needles, and I got a gauge of 5 stitches to an inch, which is the most loose gauge that's available for this pattern, because the pattern ranges from fingering to DK weight, and so the gauge also ranges quite a bit. And you cast on and then measure your gauge, and then that determines how many stitches you increase to. So it starts at the crown and you increase according to the pattern, according to the gauge that you get. So I knit the adult medium size, and since I had the most loose gauge that was available in the pattern, I made the size that has the least number of stitches for that size, which I don't remember what that is, it doesn't matter. But anyway, it worked out really well. I used some leftover yarn that I had from, if you've watched for a while, last fall I knit 3 prayer shawls for some family members that had lost a loved one, and I had some leftovers from those shawls that I made. So this color is called Nutmeg Heather. It is Knit Picks Stroll worsted, which is 100% superwash merino wool. And this hat took 125 grams of yarn to knit, but I only had 79 grams of the Nutmeg Heather colorway. But I really wanted to have a solid colored hat. So I'm so happy with how this turned out. I think it looks great. But since I didn't have enough yarn, I had to kind of play around with the color management and how to place the yarn so that it would look like a solid hat. So this is how I really wanted to be able to wear it for the majority of the time, I guess. But I had to put in some other colors into this hat, and I wanted them to be hidden. So anyway, here it is this way, but I did the math and figured out that if it was folded up like this, I could hide another color under the brim here. So in the brim here, I have a stripe of Dove Heather, again, in the same yarn. So this is again Knit Picks Swish, but just in the Dove Heather colorway. And you know, the hat can also be worn like this so that you can see that stripe, which is kind of a fun option. But my favorite way is to wear it with the cuff like this. It's also super nice and warm this way because it's worsted weight and it's quadruple thick right here. I'm hoping that you all are familiar with this pattern, but if you're not, this pattern is knit in a long tube and then you flip it inside itself to give it a double layer. So I, again, didn't have enough of the Dove Heather colorway and had to add in just a little bit more yarn. So on this side, I have a little bit of Garnet Heather in that same colorway. So I started over here on this side, and the math that I did was I knit this section for 8 inches, and then I knit 2 inches of the Dove Heather colorway, figuring that that would be hidden in the fold like I showed you. Then I continued with the Nutmeg Heather until I ran out of that yarn, and then continued with the Dove Heather until I ran out of that yarn, and then I finally finished it up with the Garnet Heather. But anyway, then you fold it in on itself once you get to the right length. Oh, I should say that I actually decided to, so I knit the adult medium size, but I knit it to the length of the adult large size because I wanted it to be a little bit longer so that I would have a little bit extra room to roll up that cuff. Anyway, I can also fold it kind of inside out basically, and then I get this cool 3-toned color block look, which I think is fun. Or I can fold it up this way, and it has this look to it, which is also fun, I think. So I'm really happy with how this turned out. I just finished it yesterday, so I haven't given it a block yet, and I think I will because some of my stitches are kind of uneven, and I think it will really look nicer once it is blocked. But I'm super happy with this, and I think it will just be such a great hat to be able to throw on and stay super warm when the temperatures drop. So anyway, I was very happy to work this up, and it was just so quick in the worsted weight yarn, of course, but it took me less than a week to make it, I think, or maybe just over a week. I started it on the 18th and finished it yesterday on the 23rd, so about a week. Anyway, it was very fun to make, and my kids are all really interested in how this works up, you know, because it folds in on itself. They think that that's really cool. So anyway, I may be making more of these down the road. We'll see about that. It's really a fun pattern though. It's really great. Especially in the worsted weight, it is so gratifying to work it up so quickly. I have one more finished object. Oh, I forgot to mention that the ribbed socks that I made for Eva are the second item on my Make 9 list that I have made for myself that I have finished. So I'm on a roll. Got 2 out of 9 done. And I have started on another project. I also have on my Make 9 board this dishcloth pattern, and my goal is to knit through a few, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 maybe skeins of I Love This Cotton yarn that I want to knit into dishcloths this year. So that's another one of my Make 9 goals. But I've finished one here. This is a pattern by Carolyn Stanton, who's also known as Carousel Design, and this is called the Classic Easy Knit Dishcloth. It's a free pattern, and I will, of course, link to it in the description box below. The colorway here that I have in the I Love This Cotton yarn is called Bruschetta. I knit this on US 6 4mm needles, and I do make a modification to this pattern in that I only increase to 52 stitches so that it's a little bit smaller than what the pattern calls for. But I just love this pattern. I think it works up so in such a neat way. It makes a really neat looking dishcloth, and I always like to have a supply of dishcloths on hand to be able to gift to people randomly throughout the year. I have started on another one, and it's in the same yarn. I'm just making another one, so I just started it last night, haven't gotten too far. This is the only project pretty much that I use when I'm knitting that I don't use ChowGoo needles for. Right now at least, I'm using these boy needles, which again are size 6. So just the old-fashioned straight needles, and that just works really well for this dishcloth pattern. This yarn, by the way, is worsted weight, and it's 100% cotton. I have, yeah, like I said, I think 4 other colors of this yarn that I'm going to be working through this year. But that's, I guess we're already into my works in progress. Another work in progress, oh, and I should mention this bag I got several years ago off of an Etsy shop called My Creative Frenzy. Super cute with the quilting on there. I have also started another project from my Make 9 board. This is being held in a beautiful bag from Trisha of Joy in the Stitches. She actually gifted me this bag, so it's super special and so beautiful. And in here I have started the only garment that I have on my Make 9 board, which is called the Whisper Cardigan. And it is a design by Heidi May of the Velvet Acorn. And I am crocheting this. This is a crochet pattern. I am crocheting this using, again, knit picks in 2 different yarns. It calls for fingering weight held double with a silk mohair blend. So I am using palette for the fingering weight, which is 100% non-superwash Peruvian Highland wool. And this is in the colorway Calypso Heather. And the silk mohair I'm holding is the Knit Picks Aloft. It's lace weight, and it is 72% super kid mohair and 28% silk, and it's in the Kenai colorway. So those are being held together for this project. I did not do a gauge swatch for this project. I just thought I would start working this up and then measure my gauge as I went along. And I had been trying it on as I went as well, and it was fitting pretty well until just recently when I tried it on. And I realized it's way too big, and so I checked my gauge, and my gauge is 2 stitches too loose for this pattern. So I think the original pattern calls for it to be 18 stitches to 4 inches, and mine's only 16 stitches to 4 inches. Let me double check that, just to make sure I'm giving you the right information. Here's a picture of it from the pattern. This is a great pattern also because it comes in a huge range of sizes. It starts at children's sizes, which are measuring at 21.75 inches for the chest circumference, and it goes up to 58 inches for the chest circumference. The original gauge is 18.5 stitches to 4 inches, so I'm 2.5 stitches off of where I should be for this gauge. I was using the recommended needles, which are a G 4mm hook for the ribbing, and then an H 5mm for the main body. So I'm not sure what I'll try next. I might try the G for the main body, but I'm not sure if that will even be enough. I might need to go down another hook size. I'm not sure, but anyway, this is how it's looking. And I was a little bit nervous about the neck opening but it is kind of not a tight neck opening on the picture anyway. But I think maybe since I did the last increase, you can really just see that it's not fitting well. It's like way too loose throughout here, I think. So anyway, it's all right. I hope that the mohair will rip out okay. I was watching Deborah of Candy Shop Yarns most recent episode, and she was ripping out a mohair sweater that she had started, and same thing, she had gotten the wrong gauge and needed to start over. So she was ripping it out on her episode, and that gave me a little bit of confidence boost to try to rip this out, because I'm a little bit nervous about it not ripping out very easily with the mohair. But I've also heard that you can throw it into the freezer and rip it out. I feel like maybe I have had to rip out mohair in the past and it was okay, but I don't know. I can't recall what that was. So anyway, hopefully it'll go okay to rip this out and start over again. I really have enjoyed working it up, and it, you know, crochet does work up so much quicker than knitting anyway, so it's really just got such fun stitches in it. I don't know if you can really see them well, but there's these kind of a cross stitch where you kind of cross your stitches right there. It just gives it some fun texture. So I'm going to try this again. I am crocheting the size small/medium, which should give me a size of, let's see, I think that's like the 9th size in the pattern, but again, there's several sizes in this. It should give me a 39-inch chest circumference as a finished garment. So hopefully that goes well. We'll see how it works out. I don't know, I'm a little bit nervous that I'm going to have a hard time getting gauge, because I just don't know what hook to go down to, but we'll see. Hopefully it will be okay. Okay, and then I just randomly cast on another cardigan. It's being held in this bag that I made myself. I was inspired to start this cardigan because I've really been enjoying watching the It Is a Sarah podcast. She has been doing daily vlogs throughout the month of February, and she also was knitting a Felix cardigan. And I guess I was just inspired by watching her videos to cast on this pattern as well. So I have also started the Felix cardigan, which is a pattern by Amy Christoffers of Savory Knitting. I'm also very excited to be using up this yarn that was gifted to me by Joan, a viewer of this channel. This is called Carry Tweed. It's a yarn by Oltex, and it is 15% kid mohair, 15% mohair, 40% acrylic, 30% wool. And I believe it's about a worsted weight, 97 yards to 50 grams. The color is just a number, it's just color number 7, but it's just this beautiful gray tweedy yarn. It's a really interesting yarn. It's got quite a high twist to it, and it kind of has a thick and thin texture. But I've really enjoyed working with it so far. So for this, I did do a gauge swatch, and I was able to meet gauge with US 9 5.5 millimeter needles, and I'm making the 43.5 inch size, which is the second size in the pattern. So I haven't, well, I've gotten a little ways on this one, I guess, and it seems to be fitting pretty well. These are the longest cables I have for these bigger needles. I might need to order a longer cable just so I can get a better idea of the fit for this, so that I can stretch it out, because right now it's still bunched up on here even when I have it laid, even when I have it spread out on the needles. But anyway, I think it's working out pretty nicely. It has just a nice, I think it'll be a pretty loose fit according to the finished size that is given. It has these fun eyelet raglan increases, but other than that, it's just a very simple stockinette cardigan. And I am just really happy with how this yarn is knitting up. I think it will be so just such a nice wearable garment. So I'm excited about that. I guess I don't have much more to say about this right now. So far, it's just, working up really well and I'm enjoying it. So I think it will work up pretty quickly. It's super fun and easy. I highly recommend the pattern so far. I know it's a very popular pattern, so maybe a lot of you already have knit it, but if you haven't, I think it's a great one. Nice classic look. If you're not familiar, I guess I can show you the picture of this one from the pattern page as well. So it's just a nice simple cardigan, but again, it just has these fun details along the raglan increases. And this also comes in a pullover version as well. All right, I also want to show off 3 of my Scrappy blankets that I have been working on. I've just been so happy working on my Scrappy blankets lately. So this first blanket I want to share with you is the Chevron Granny Ripple Blanket, which I am following. I followed a pattern by Bella Coco to learn this stitch pattern. I will link to the YouTube tutorial where I watched that video. And I just wanted to share my progress on this one. Let's see, there is the progress keeper from where I was last time. I showed this off on the last episode, and I've added several more inches of work to this project. And I've actually worked through, I just have a few little tiny scraps from some remnants that kind of came off of the yarn that I'm making my Felix cardigan out of that I will eventually add into this blanket. But other than that, I have used up all of my scraps that I have for this blanket. So the yarn that's going into this blanket are wool or cotton blends in either DK or worsted weight. I'm using an H 5mm hook for this project, and it is just working up. It's just so fun to work up. I'm using the Russian join method when I change colors, so I don't have any ends to weave in. And yeah, I just think it is so beautiful. I'm so happy with it. I'm doing the colors very randomly, as you can probably tell. I just use up the little scraps that I have until they're all used up and then switch colors whenever. And I'm enjoying it so much. But it's maybe, I don't think it's even to the halfway point yet. No, probably only a third of the way to where I would want it as a finished blanket. So this will be a long-term project because I've worked through the majority of my scraps that I have that will go into this right now. But as I finish more projects, hopefully I'll just be able to see this thing grow, and there's no hurry. It's just going to be another blanket for our family. But I really enjoy it. It's so pretty. I love all the different colors that go into Scrappy blankets. They're so much fun. The next Scrappy blanket that I've been working on, and I still have quite a few scraps to work through, is this simple garter stitch blanket. I just started this maybe a month ago. Yeah, in January 25th, I started this. So this is a newer blanket for me. I was inspired after watching Amber of A Lovely Yarn make one of these types of blankets as well. I cast on 240 stitches just like she did, and I'm holding 2 fingering weight yarns double. I think for Amber's, I know that for Amber's, she is holding a solid bare yarn double with fingering weight scraps, but I'm actually holding 2 fingering weight scraps double. So I'm getting a very marled look. Last time I said that I also am using the Russian join method for this blanket whenever I change yarns, and I wasn't very specific. I had said that it works really well for this blanket because I'm never changing. I'm only changing one color of yarn at a time. Since I'm just using up scraps, my 2 scraps don't ever run out at the same time. Again, I mean, I guess they possibly could, but I haven't had that yet. Since I'm just using up scraps and holding them double, they run out at different times. And so whenever I need to join in a new yarn, I only have one yarn that's being joined in with a new color and only have one Russian join at a time. I hope that makes sense. So anyway, the Russian join method can cause a little bit of bulk in that spot where you join in the yarn, but I don't find it very noticeable with this blanket since I'm holding 2 yarns double and they're fingering weight. I don't know, it just doesn't seem to show up, so it's working out really well. Anyway, I'm using US 8 5mm needles for this blanket, and I'm just doing plain garter stitch. And then on the ends, I am slipping the last 3 stitches with the yarn in front to create this I-cord edge. And I really love how it's working up. Here in the middle, you can see a beautiful progress keeper from Tracy of Grizzly Knits that she gifted to me. And that's marking where I was last time, so I've almost doubled the length of it so far. But it's kind of a slow growing project as well, which is perfectly fine. This will be another long-term project, and I love those, so that's okay with me, especially for scrappy blankets. They just always seem to take a long time, and that's kind of the joy of them, I think. I just love how it's working up though. It's so pretty. I'm super happy with this one. It's so enjoyable. All right, my last work in progress that I have to share with you is my biggest one. And it's I'm pretty sure my longest term. Yeah, I'm sure it's my longest term scrappy blanket that I've had on the go. I wonder when I started this one. It is a favorite of mine, and I think many others that watch at this channel. I know it's my friend Tina's favorite blanket that I am making. This is the Excavation Blanket by Jana Pahota, and I started this in November of 2017. I am using US 2.75mm needles for this project, and it is made using all fingering weight yarn, held single for this one. I use this as a memory blanket basically. So whenever I finish a fingering weight project, if I have enough leftovers, then I add a stripe of the color that I have knit up into this blanket. And this has very little progress on it compared to the other blankets, but here is a progress keeper. Actually, both of these progress keepers are from Erica of Rose Opal Knits. She made both of them. This one is cross-stitched. So beautiful. And then this one she also made by putting the charm, putting it together anyway. And she gifted me both of these. The cross-stitch progress keeper is marking where I was the last time I showed this blanket off on an episode. So I've only made a couple of inches of progress, but I add to it very slowly whenever I finish a fingering weight project. But then this progress keeper is marking the beginning of 2023. So I have progress keepers throughout this blanket, marking each year. So here's the beginning of 2022. And it just goes down every year. I've put another marker to show the different yarns that I have worked up for that year. So the way that this pattern works is it's a free pattern. You start at one end, you leave a tail of yarn, you knit across, or, well, when you start off, you knit across and you increase, and then you knit back and you increase again. Or maybe you increase at the beginning of the round. I think you do, but I can't quite remember because it's been a while since I've been on the increase side. But again, it's free, so I'll link to it and you can check it out if you're interested. But anyway, then you leave a tail at the end of the row, the second row that you knit, so that you don't have any ends to weave in. You just always have this fringe for each row of yarn that you have worked into the blanket. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, once you get to the halfway point, you're supposed to turn your work and then continue in the same manner, but decreasing instead. But then half of your blanket would be showing the right side and half of your blanket would be showing the wrong side. And I didn't want that for my blanket, so I decided to just, on the second half of my blanket, I have been purling everything. So I purl across and then purl 2 stitches together at the end of each row and then purl back again. I don't mind purling. I enjoy it just as much as I enjoy knitting, so it doesn't bother me at all, but I know that's not everybody's cup of tea. But that's just what's working for me, and that way my entire blanket shows the right side, and then of course the wrong side is also beautiful, but I just wanted mine to be cohesive in that one side showed all of the right side, if that makes sense. I'll go ahead and stand up so you can see this one since it's really huge right now. All right, this is very difficult to show off, but I'll do the best I can here. So you can see it is quite large, and I'm getting down to really relatively, I have quite a few less stitches on it than before. I just have, you know, kind of this one corner to finish at, but depending on how many fingering weight projects I finish this year, I may not yet be done with it this year even, but anyway, isn't it beautiful? I just love the look of this pattern and how it stripes up and how the colors shift and change. I think it's so much fun. So there's my progress. Slow but sure, but still such an enjoyable project to work on. Maybe I could kind of wear it to show it off. And maybe you can notice all the different progress keepers on there marking all of the years that I've worked on it. So much fun. Isn't it pretty? I really worked up a lot of neon colors last year into a few projects, so really brightened up that area of the blanket. So lovely, isn't it? I just love this pattern so much. It is such a joy to make. So that's the update on that one. I know I hadn't shown that off in several episodes, so I wanted to give an update on this scrappy blanket as well. I just have one more thing to share with you all. I was sent a couple of gifts from Lisa of Hey Country Creations. She sent a few little packages over to me. She makes these amazing progress keepers using beads, and she sent over this cute little guy, a dinosaur in an egg, and just admire all of that beadwork. There's just so much tiny detail in there. I am so impressed with how much detail there is in these little things. I can't imagine the amount of time that goes into making one of these, but they're so adorable. So this little goodie bag has a sucker in here, and then her business card in this cute little bag along with this cute progress keeper. And then she sent one more in this bag, and this is also adorable. It is like a little love letter. I want it to fall down. Let's see if I can get it worked down. There we go. Isn't that cute? I think that is so sweet. So thank you so much, Lisa. I really appreciate you sending these goodies my way, and they are so sweet. So I will link to her shop online as well if you want to check out the different progress keepers and charms that she has for sale. Thank you so much, Lisa. So that is all that I have to share with you all today. I hope that you enjoyed watching this episode. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you all are doing really well. Take care. Bye-bye.